People say that every family has a black sheep. In North Korea, if we have to pick one from the Kim family, he must be Kim Jong-nam, dear leader's eldest son. He had 2 Rolexes, 4 passports, and 3 families. He liked sushi, slot machines, and silence. Given his status, he could have ruled a nation. Instead, his life ended in an airport, with his eyes burning and the world watching. This is not a story of power. It's a story of what happens when you're born with too much political power, but refuse to rule with an iron fist. This is the rise and fall of Kim Jong-nam, North Korea's lost prince, Kim Jong-un's exiled brother, and a man who once attempted to open up North Korea and make the Kim family step down from the throne. He did not want to be the supreme leader, and thus the tragedy happened. Now, buckle up, let's dig in.
Kim Jong-nam, as the eldest son of the former leader Kim Jong-il, was arguably the natural heir to the family's succession of power, but he spent much of his adult life in exile, and it was his half-brother Kim Jong-un who became the leader, ruling with an iron fist.
Once upon a time in the Kingdom of North Korea, a hidden prince was born. Kim Jong-nam entered the world in 1971 as the eldest son of the future dear leader Kim Jong-il. His mother, Song Hae-rim, was a star actress and Kim Jong-il's secret mistress. While the little Jong-nam was certain a product of love, his father couldn't normalize the situation with his mother because the grandpa, the eternal president Kim Il-sung, disapproved of this relationship. In a regime obsessed with optics and bloodlines, this little boy was essentially born with a mask on. No public appearances, no mention in state media. The first son of dear leader had to pretend he didn't exist, all because grandpa wasn't fond of mum. Young Kim Jong-nam grew up like a North Korean phantom prince, hidden from public eyes and living incognito under guard, with an unusually closed-off childhood. His aunt later recalled that the child couldn't even attend any school for fear grandpa would find out about him. Instead, little Jong-nam had to be homeschooled or play with just a few carefully selected companions, mainly his aunt's own kids, as makeshift playmates. Imagine being a kid who's technically royalty in a people's republic, yet you can't tell anyone your name or who your father is. Yet in the upside-down world of the Kim dynasty, even an invisible prince would be spoiled rotten. Kim Jong-il adored his firstborn son in those early days. One anecdote says that when young Jong-nam was afraid to go to the dentist, doting Daddy Kim solved it by buying the boy a fancy imported car as a bribe to get his teeth checked. Nothing says caring parent like a Mercedes for a toddler's toothache. Daddy Kim even let little Jong-nam sit in the big boss's chair in his office, pointing to the supreme leader's throne and saying that one day this will all be yours. It seemed the eldest son, though hidden, was destined to become the king. But love in a dictator's household comes with strings attached. The same special treatment that spoiled Jong-nam also isolated him. For extra precaution, and perhaps because his mother needed psychiatric care abroad, young Kim Jong-nam was sent overseas. In the late 1970s, he was reportedly sent to live in the Soviet Union for a while. In the 1980s, he bounced around other countries, such as Switzerland and Japan, under fake names, and was educated far from home. While the North Korean public had no clue this kid even existed, Kim Jong-nam was out experiencing the world, just as much as his little brothers did. He attended an elite international school in Geneva, learned to speak French and English, and even picked up a bit of Japanese and Chinese. Though, by his own admission, the latter two were only good enough to help him order dinner at a restaurant. For a young Kim of the Paektu bloodline, growing up in the free world was an unprecedented upbringing. Kim Jong-nam was far from the indoctrination of those Pyongyang propagandists. This exposure to the outside world planted some dangerous seeds in his mind. While other kids in Pyongyang were being taught that the Kim family was literal gods on earth, Kim Jong-nam was abroad discovering that Mickey Mouse and Jean-Claude Van Damme existed, and that maybe, just maybe, not everything in life revolved around Juche ideology. Western ideas rubbed off on him. He started developing different views about how North Korea should be run. By his late teens, these views were raising alarm bells for his father. Kim Jong-il, ever wary of disloyalty, noticed that his Western-educated son wasn't exactly a zealot for the regime's way of thinking. So, dear leader decided to cut short Jong-nam's study abroad program and reel him back in before he got too liberal for North Korea's comfort. After all, one can't have an heir to the throne thinking Pyongyang should turn into Paris or embrace reforms as China did. The stage was set. The hidden prince was coming home. And he was bringing some dangerous ideas with him.
Born May 10, 1971 in Pyongyang, he was the son to Kim Jong-il and his mistress Sung Hae-rim. He was expected to be the first in line to be the leader of North Korea, but events took a different turn. Kim Jong-nam is thought to have spent much of his childhood in Pyongyang living like a prince, but during his teenage years he spent time studying in Switzerland where he reportedly learned about democracy.
Back to the early 1990s, Kim Jong-nam transitioned from a hidden secret to an open secret. Though still kept away from public view, he quietly began to be groomed as heir apparent. At the tender age of 15, he was already given a fancy title, the head of the North Korean Computer Committee. It allowed him to show face at official events as a teen bureaucrat. By the mid-90s, he was promoted to a role in the Workers' Party Propaganda and Agitation Department. Clearly, the nepotism track was in full swing. Then came 1994. Kim Il-sung finally died, and Kim Jong-il took over as the new supreme leader. With Grandpa gone, the obstacle to Jong-nam's legitimacy vanished. Suddenly, the hidden son could be widely acknowledged. Dear leader wasted no time clearing the path for his favored boy. In 1995, at just 24 years old, Kim Jong-nam was awarded the rank of 4-star general in the Korean People's Army, despite having zero military experience. This absurd promotion made him one of the most powerful young men in the country on paper, and certainly signaled that Kim Jong-il intended for Jong-nam to succeed him someday. In the hierarchy of North Korea's military, being a 24-year-old great general confers some serious clout. Along with his military rank, Jong-nam started accumulating some important posts. In 1998, at age 27, he was officially appointed to head the National Public Security Department, essentially overseeing all internal security issues. He took on other senior roles related to technology and national planning as well. At this point, the consensus among Pyongyang elites and foreign observers was that Kim Jong-nam was the designated crown prince. After all, in a Confucian-influenced dynasty, the eldest son has the strongest claim. He also carried the prestigious bloodline of Kim Il-sung, albeit through a disproved mother. But with Grandpa gone and Father Kim's open nepotism, Jong-nam looks set to be the next great leader someday. However, even as he rose, cracks in Jong-nam's suitability were showing. For one, Kim Jong-nam just wasn't that interested in ruling. He had seen the outside world and wasn't enamored with the idea of running the family crime syndicate. Those close to him later recounted that he lacked the hunger for power. In fact, he repeatedly expressed that he had no desire to inherit North Korea's throne. On multiple occasions in the early 2000s, he outright stated he wished to relinquish his claim in favor of a quiet life. Imagine that, a Kim who doesn't want to be a dictator. It's like a Hollywood actor saying they hate fame. Technically possible, but in North Korea, it was just unheard of. Kim Jong-nam's disinterest in power was an absurd anomaly, a prince who wanted to abdicate before even getting the crown.
In May 2001, he was caught trying to enter Japan with his son and 2 women using a fake passport to visit Disneyland, Tokyo. The much publicized incident is said to have deeply embarrassed his father, cementing Kim Jong-il's negative view of his eldest son.
By the turn of the millennium, Kim Jong-nam was riding high, but also partying hard. To better relinquish his power, he began acting out in ways that hardly befitted a future great leader. In Pyongyang's gossip circles, tales spread of Jong-nam's playboy antics. For example, there was the notorious 1993 Koryo Hotel incident. The drunken Jong-nam reportedly fired off a pistol in a hotel bar during a wild night, possibly injuring a bystander. Daddy Kim Jong-il was furious at that fiasco. It earned Jong-nam some serious scoldings, and likely a timeout from Pyongyang. Rumor has it that after 1995, Kim Jong-nam was essentially exiled to China for years as a disciplinary measure. He spent a lot of time in Beijing, out of sight and mind of the Pyongyang establishment, supposedly to keep him out of trouble. But geographical distance didn't dampen Jong-nam's taste for the high life. In Beijing, he lived more like a spoiled rich expat than a cloistered North Korean princeling. Locals in the know would spot his red BMW sports car zipping around town, often driven by his wife, Shin Jong-hui. The couple became semi-regulars at a fancy Korean restaurant in the city, and even local Korean Chinese grandmothers gossiped about seeing them buying specialty foods in Korean markets. Reportedly, Shin Jong-hui loved to pick up North Korean soybean paste at a particular Korean store in Chaoyang district. The image is almost comical. While ordinary North Koreans were facing late 90s famine, dear leader's son was living it up in China, dining on gourmet bulgogi and stocking up on home country fermented bean paste, all while zipping around in a flashy BMW. During those Beijing days, Kim Jong-nam got first-hand experience of something truly dangerous: China's economic boom. Here was a communist-run country, officially socialist like North Korea, that had embraced market economics and reforms, and then flourishing. Kim Jong-nam saw that neon-lit future. Skyscrapers, thriving businesses, people lifted from poverty, all thanks to the opening up policies. This made a deep impression, so much so that when he did visit Pyongyang, he made the cardinal mistake. He began lecturing his father about the need for economic reform in North Korea. Jong-nam earnestly told Kim Jong-il that the only way to save North Korea was to follow China's model, to maintain the one-party rule but open up the economy, allowing some capitalist spirit and letting people breathe a little free air.
Kim Jong-nam was essentially exiled from North Korea thereon and spent much of his time in China and Macau, and eventually his half-brother Kim Jong-un was named heir apparent in 2010. Although rarely appearing in public, he would speak to reporters occasionally and make critical comments about his brother and the regime.
Now, suggesting reform to Kim Jong-il was like suggesting a vegan menu at a tiger's dinner party. Dear leader hated the very concept. Reform and openness were his two least favorite words, associated with heresy that could undermine the Kim family's absolute grip. Every time Jong-nam brought it up, Kim Jong-il's face would darken. To him, his son's talk sounded like an echo of Soviet traitors or Chinese revisionists, an existential threat to their monarchy. Kim Jong-nam later reflected that he understood his father's fear. Kim Jong-il worried that opening up would dilute the Kim dynasty's power and mystique. And frankly, the daddy wasn't all wrong. Give North Koreans a taste of freedom, and they might start questioning God King Kim. So each time Jong-nam preached about Chinese-style reforms, Daddy Dearest blew a gasket. The heir apparent was unwittingly talking himself out of a job. Love only went so far. Kim Jong-il's patience for dissent, even from his beloved son, was thin. This growing tension might have been survivable if Jong-nam had kept a low profile. He didn't. Instead, he delivered the coup de grace to his prospects in the most farcical way imaginable. In May 2001, Kim Jong-nam attempted a secret family trip to Japan. The objective? Not some important political meetings, not a military mission, but a visit to Tokyo Disneyland. Yes, the would-be leader of North Korea risked everything for a chance to ride Space Mountain and hang out with Mickey Mouse. He had become enamored with Japan's pop culture and wanted to treat his family to some theme park fun. To get in, he used a fake Dominican Republic passport, traveling under a ridiculous pseudonym that translated to Fat Bear in Chinese. Unsurprisingly, Japanese immigration wasn't fooled. A chubby Asian man named Fat Bear with a sketchy Dominican passport set off all the alarms. Kim Jong-nam was caught red-handed at Tokyo's Narita airport, detained by polite Japanese officers and promptly deported in shame a few days later. The Disneyland fiasco became an international media sensation and a colossal embarrassment for Pyongyang. Imagine the headlines. Kim Jong-il's son caught sneaking into Japan for Disneyland. In a regime that deifies its leaders as infallible, this incident made Kim Jong-il lose face big time. Dear leader was furious. The humiliation of his heir, partying with Disney characters under a fake name, was too much. It was the last straw. Jong-nam was stripped of his status as successor, quietly and swiftly in the aftermath of the scandal. Kim Jong-il essentially banished his eldest son from the line of succession and from the country's core circles, choosing instead to groom a more compliant and discreet heir, his younger son, Kim Jong-un.
North Korea declared Kim Jong-un supreme leader of the country's ruling party, its military, and its people on Thursday. The proclamation was made during a memorial for the late president and Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il.
From that moment in 2001 onward, Kim Jong-nam went from heir number one to persona non grata. Officially, nothing was announced, but insiders knew Fat Bear had fallen. I was guilty of a serious crime, Jong-nam later said about the Disneyland debacle in an understatement. I made my father lose trust in me. Indeed, when your dictator dad has to send officials to apologize to Japan for your attempted Mickey Mouse caper, you're not exactly getting a promotion. In the fallout, Kim Jong-nam did the smart thing by keeping away from Pyongyang. He spent his life mostly overseas, effectively in exile. He reportedly went to Moscow to care for his ailing mother, who was undergoing medical treatment there. He stayed by her side until she passed away in 2003. By that time, back in North Korea, the regime was doing mental gymnastics to erase Kim Jong-nam's once lofty profile. The military, ever the barometer of regime favor, suddenly started glorifying Ko Yong-hui in 2003, calling her the de facto revolutionary mother. This was a clear signal. The army would never accept Kim Jong-nam, the son of the other woman, as leader. With mum dead and his name blackened at home, Jong-nam settled into a life abroad. He moved his family into a luxury villa overseas and ceased involvement in Pyongyang's leadership entirely. The crown prince turned into a black sheep of the Kim clan, a free soul who was more interested in personal life than palace intrigues. In a final twist of that chapter, there was a fleeting moment when Kim Jong-nam might have tried to return. In 2007, around age 36, some reports claim he briefly came back to North Korea and took a low-profile job in the ruling party's Organization Guidance Department. Perhaps he thought he could quietly be a bureaucrat and rehabilitate his standing. Or maybe familial nostalgia brought him home for a bit. If true, it didn't last. Kim Jong-il's health was waning by then, and the succession was already tilting toward Kim Jong-un. Jong-nam likely saw that writing on the wall. After a short stay, he slipped away again, back to the comforts of his semi-retirement in foreign lands. The prodigal son had no desire for the throne, and the throne now had no desire for him. Thus ended the rise and fall of Kim Jong-nam as North Korea's heir apparent. What followed was over a decade of an odd, wandering life that no one could have scripted, as the estranged son of a dictator.
Kim Jong-nam moved to Macau more than 15 years ago, and for most of that time, him and his family lived here in this villa. It has a plaque of a sunflower apparently symbolizing Kim's loyalty to the North Korean regime. Now, people here say the family kept a low profile. They had little to do with the neighbors. They would shuttle between here and an apartment in the city center. This villa is now locked up and there's no one living here. His family is said to be in hiding over fears for their security.
Free from North Korean protocols, he based himself abroad, primarily in the gambling haven of Macau. He also spent time in Beijing and reportedly had bolt holes in places like Singapore and Europe. But Macau became his main playground from around 2006 onward. If you're an exiled princeling with a target on your back, Macau in the 2000s was not a bad choice. It's under China's umbrella, it's affluent, and it's full of fellow shady rich characters to blend in with. Kim Jong-nam settled into a life that was simultaneously lavish and low-key. Lavish because he had access to significant funds. It's said that his grandfather, Kim Il-sung, provided Jong-nam a yearly stipend of at least $500,000 for living expenses. Think of it as a royal pension for the deposed prince. With that kind of allowance, plus whatever he squirreled away or earned through side gigs, Jong-nam could afford a comfortable exile. He owned or rented multiple luxury apartments around Macau, at least 4 residences in different upscale areas, which he would rotate between to throw off anyone tracking him. He travelled frequently, often to mainland China, which treated him as a VIP guest and provided him with bodyguards. Kim Jong-nam was often out and about in Macau with minimal security. Journalists and tourists alike would have unexpected Kim sightings. There he was, strolling through a 5-star hotel lobby or enjoying a meal, usually without any bodyguard entourage. By most accounts, he was friendly and unpretentious if you ran into him. A jovial, portly man who didn't carry himself with the pomp of North Korean royalty. He kept himself entertained with a mix of wholesome family life and quirky personal hobbies. Let's talk about the family first, because of course, one wife is just not enough for a Kim. Kim Jong-nam was a bona fide polyamorous patriarch. He had 3 wives, or say long-term partners, installed comfortably in his various locales. Shin Jong-hee was his first wife. She mostly stayed in Beijing along with their son, living in a secluded villa. Lee Hae-gyong, the second partner, lived in Macau with their children. They had a son and a daughter and resided in one of Jong-nam's Macau homes. By some accounts, this might be the family that accompanied him on the infamous Disneyland trip. Yong-la, the third partner, was reportedly a former Air Koryo flight attendant. She also lived in Macau, but had no publicly known children with Jong-nam. She was perhaps a comforting companion in his later years. Kim Jong-nam would flit between these families, particularly spending more and more time in Macau, where 2 of them lived. One can imagine the absurdity. A fallen North Korean princeling managing a mini harem of households in the heart of the world's gambling capital. It's like a plot from a surreal novel, except it was real, and everyone involved tried to keep it discreet. When he wasn't playing family man, Jong-nam indulged in odd hobbies that set him far apart from his goose-stepping relatives in Pyongyang. For instance, he had a fascination with Japanese culture. He loved Yakuza gangster films and novels. According to those who knew him, he admired the codes of honor and brotherhood in Japanese underworld stories. In a twist of irony, the disowned prince of a mafia-like regime found solace in the romanticized honor of the actual mafia. He collected Japanese gangster DVDs by the pile whenever he visited Japan. It became a bit of an obsession. You could say he was researching how a real family business operates, as opposed to his birth family's version. He once attempted to get a giant tattoo of a ferocious tiger across his back. But alas, sitting through hours of a tattoo needle turned out to be too painful, and he chickened out halfway, leaving the body art unfinished. It's a darkly funny image. The big North Korean general's son, tough enough to shoot up a bar in Pyongyang, couldn't handle a tattoo session. Perhaps the tiger of Pyongyang was destined to remain only in spirit. Aside from gangster pop culture, Kim Jong-nam enjoyed the pleasures of Macau's casinos and nightlife in moderation. He was spotted occasionally at the baccarat tables of the Wynn and Venetian casinos. Observers noted he had a fondness for hours-long sauna sessions and a bit of gambling, a fairly typical rich middle-aged man's pastime in Macau.
Kim had led a relatively open life. He was often spotted in restaurants and the casinos. Analysts say Macau was a natural base for him, as the city is North Korea's only significant foreign financial center.
By all accounts, he wasn't a high-rolling gambling addict, but he wasn't shy about enjoying the city's entertainment. Compared to a life in Pyongyang, Jong-nam's life abroad was practically bohemian. He grew used to wearing casual clothes instead of militaristic suits, gained weight from good living, and spoke freely to those he trusted. In short, he was the Kim who got away, living in Sin City, dabbling in Yakuza fandom, and basking in a freedom no one else in his family ever tasted. However, this relatively carefree exile had a dark undercurrent. He was a marked man. Kim Jong-nam knew that his half-brother Kim Jong-un considered him a potential threat, no matter how much he protested that he didn't want that throne. In a 2010 email interview with a Japanese journalist, Jong-nam himself said, "I oppose dynastic succession. It has become a joke to the outside world." He openly criticized the idea that North Korea would hand power to a third-generation Kim, a statement of heresy that surely infuriated Pyongyang. He added somewhat resignedly that if a third-generation succession was necessary for stability, he would have to accept it. But his disdain was clear. It didn't help that some members of the North Korean elite, and even China, quietly saw Jong-nam as a possible reformist alternative. For a while in the 2000s, there were two factions whispered about in Pyongyang's corridors. One supporting Kim Jong-un's rise, and one that wished exiled Kim Jong-nam could make a comeback. Uncle Jang Song-taek, the powerful fixer and Kim family in-law, was said to be sympathetic to Jong-nam's reformist streak. Both men, in their own ways, thought North Korea needed to change. For hardliners around Kim Jong-un, this was treasonous talk. They feared that if Kim Jong-il had a last-minute change of heart, or if China decided to back Kim Jong-nam, the fat bear could rise from exile and steal the throne.
Kim Jong-un's brother enters the terminal, unaware that two female assassins are also at the airport.
So even as he played the disinterested playboy, assassins lurked. There were at least two known attempts on Kim Jong-nam's life before the fatal one. In 2004, while he was traveling in Europe, an apparent North Korean hit squad tried to kill him. But thanks to a tip-off from Austrian intelligence, the plot was foiled and Jong-nam was kept safe. European security services quietly alerted all parties, causing the assassins to back off. Then in 2009, as Kim Jong-il's health worsened and Kim Jong-un's succession loomed, another plot emerged. South Korean media reported that loyalists of Kim Jong-un planned to eliminate Jong-nam, but Chinese authorities intervened to stop it. It seems Beijing wasn't going to let their quasi-guest be murdered on their watch, at least not then. These incidents underscore a chilling truth. The Playboy Prince was never really safe. He carried the proverbial sword of Damocles, no matter how detached he was. Just being a Kim made him a threat to Kim Jong-un's absolute claim. Kim Jong-nam was painfully aware of the dangers. He beefed up his personal precautions somewhat in later years, rotating houses, using aliases, varying his routines. He reportedly began traveling with a small stock of antidote for nerve agents in his bag, a paranoid yet prescient precaution. In one of his last interviews, he even admitted he felt his life was constantly at risk from the North Korean regime. This is the black comedy of his life. A man who genuinely wanted no part in North Korea's bloody throne games ended up pursued as if he were a usurper in exile. One of the final twists in his exile was the fall of his patron, Uncle Jang Song-taek. Jang was married to Kim Jong-il's sister and effectively the number 2 man in the regime after Kim Jong-il's death. He had protected Kim Jong-nam to an extent, at least tacitly, and even in 2012 reportedly advised Jong-nam to move from Macau to Malaysia for safety. Malaysia had relatively good ties with North Korea then, and perhaps Jiang thought Jong-nam would be farther from Pyongyang's reach. In late 2013, Kim Jong-un suddenly purged and executed Jang Song-taek, accusing him of treason. This event was like a final alarm bell for Kim Jong-nam. The last powerful ally who had looked out for him was gone, brutally removed by the very brother who now held all the reins in Pyongyang. Without Jiang's protection, Kim Jong-nam was already as good as dead. The young new ruler had shown his hand. He would not tolerate any political rival, family or not. The clouds were darkening fast over Kim Jong-nam's head. And so we arrive at the grim climax, the event that turned Kim Jong-nam from a footnote of North Korean history into global front-page news once more. The setting alone sounds like a spy farce. It was the morning of February 13th, 2017. Kim Jong-nam, now 46 years old and still sporting the casual look of a middle-aged tourist, was at the self-check-in kiosk, preparing for a flight to Macau. He travelled under yet another alias, this time Kim Chol, on his passport. As he strolled through the departures hall shortly after 9 a.m, two women suddenly approached him from the side. One, an Indonesian woman, stepped in front of him as if to grab his attention or perhaps ask a question. In those few seconds of distraction, the second Vietnamese woman lunged from behind. Before Jong-nam could react, the second woman clapped her hands onto his face, smearing his eyes with a liquid. And then two women darted off in opposite directions. For a moment, Kim Jong-nam stood stunned, his eyes burning. He had just been tagged with one of the deadliest nerve agents on Earth, Venomous Agent X, a poison so lethal it's classified as a weapon of mass destruction. At first, not realizing what it was, he hurried to a restroom, splashing water on his face, then sought help. Eyewitnesses later recounted that he approached an airport customer service desk in a panic, saying, "Someone sprayed liquid on my face, I feel dizzy." He likely already knew in his gut what was happening. The knife had finally found him. Airport staff escorted him to the clinic on site. By then, he was suffering seizures and his blood pressure was skyrocketing. An ambulance was called to rush him to the nearest hospital. But the VX worked quickly. Within about 15 to 20 minutes of exposure, Kim Jong-nam's organs were shutting down. He lost consciousness at the clinic and was barely alive as they loaded him into the ambulance. He died en route to the hospital, never to wake again. The chubby, easygoing prince who had survived so much absurdity was killed in a manner as theatrical as one could imagine. A bizarre public assassination using a chemical weapon, executed in broad daylight by apparent amateurs.
An alleged airport assassination captured in new security footage, apparently showing Kim Jong-nam waiting to check in, when a woman comes from behind, wipes his face with what's thought to be lethal poison, and walks away. The man believed to be Kim tells airport workers he feels dizzy. As he's walked to a clinic, what appears to be the same woman strolls out of the airport to a taxi. Then the man believed to be the North Korean dictator's half-brother and one-time rival is wheeled away on a stretcher, later pronounced dead at a hospital.
Malaysian authorities acted swiftly regarding the two women left holding the bag. Siti Aisyah was arrested on February 15th, Doan Thi Hong the day after. The case that unraveled was stranger than fiction. Here were two young women with no apparent motive to kill, duped into smearing poison on a man's face in a busy airport. The women's defense was exactly as it appeared. We thought it was a prank. We were tricked. Many experts and observers believed them, seeing them as pawns in a North Korean intelligence operation. The real killers were those four agents, and whoever sent them from Pyongyang, likely with a direct blessing from the top. The diplomatic fallout was immediate. North Korea's regime, unsurprisingly, denied any involvement. They refused to acknowledge the victim as Kim Jong-nam, insisting it was a man named Kim Chol who simply died of a heart attack. In an official statement, Pyongyang's media even accused South Korea of fabricating a conspiratorial racket. North Korean officials in Kuala Lumpur demanded the body be released to them immediately, probably to cremate it and destroy evidence. But Malaysia refused. Instead, a formal autopsy was conducted, which conclusively found VX nerve agent in Kim's eyes and on his face. The Malaysians weren't about to bury this incident quietly. What followed was a brief diplomatic standoff that could belong in the most absurd play. North Korea virtually accused Malaysia of murdering an innocent citizen, while Malaysia implied North Korea was abusing diplomatic privileges to carry out a chemical attack on their soil. Both countries slapped travel bans on each other's citizens for a few weeks. For a moment, it felt like this bizarre assassination might spark an actual break in relations. Eventually, a deal was struck. By late March 2017, Malaysia agreed to return Kim Jong-nam's body to North Korea. In exchange, North Korea released several Malaysian citizens it had effectively held hostage in Pyongyang during the row. The body of the fallen prince was reportedly received in Pyongyang with zero fanfare. The regime never officially admitted it was him. They likely disposed of the remains quietly, as if to erase the existence of this wayward son.
The young women have no idea what they've done. They are soon arrested by the local Malaysian police.
Meanwhile, the two accused women languished in Malaysian jails facing murder charges. Their trial became a global spectacle from 2017 to 2019. However, to the relief of many, the prank narrative held up. In 2019, Malaysian prosecutors dropped the murder charge against Siti Aisyah and released her, citing no public reason other than good relations with Indonesia. Duan Thi Huong, the Vietnamese woman, had her charge reduced, and she pleaded guilty to a lesser offense, causing hurt by dangerous weapon, allowing her to get a brief sentence and walk free by May 2019. They returned home to much relief and a bit of infamy, having played roles in one of the most surreal assassinations of the century. One more twist came after the murder. Reports emerged suggesting Kim Jong-nam had been meeting with CIA operatives in his final years. The Wall Street Journal and other outlets claimed that he had a nexus with the CIA, possibly even that his trip to Malaysia was to meet an agency contact. US intelligence sources noted that while Jong-nam probably couldn't spill deep secrets of Pyongyang, he was likely in touch with various countries' security services. If Kim Jong-un suspected his brother was selling regime secrets to the Americans, that would have been all the more reason to order the hit. True or not, this detail is like a final layer of irony. Kim Jong-nam, who never wanted to be a spy master or political player, ended up entangled in international espionage rumors in death. It's as if every paranoid accusation Pyongyang hurled at him, traitor, plotter, pawn of foreign forces, sought to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Thus, the saga of Kim Jong-nam reached its bloody conclusion. On that February day, while fireworks lit up Pyongyang's sky to celebrate Kim Jong-il's birthday, dear leader's firstborn son lay cold in a Kuala Lumpur morgue. The timing was poetic in a morbid way. As North Korea celebrated the man who favoured Jong-nam at first and then cast him aside, agents of the new ruler silently closed the chapter on Jong-nam's life. North Korean state media never acknowledged the loss of General Kim Jong-nam. To this day, many North Koreans likely have no idea such a person existed or was killed. It is hard to say whether Kim Jong-nam's life is a comedy or a tragedy. He didn't want power. He didn't raise an army. He didn't plot a coup. He just existed as the eldest son of Kim Jong-il. But in North Korea, that's enough to get you on the elimination list. After taking power in 2011, Kim Jong-un didn't just inherit the throne, he also burned the family tree. Almost everyone who stood next to his father's coffin in that icy funeral procession was purged, vanished, or executed. Uncle Jang Song-taek? Gone. General Ri Yong-ho? Gone. Old elites? Out. In the kingdom built on paranoia, even blood is suspect. Even if Kim Jong-nam himself never wanted a coup, foreign powers or dissidents could rally around him. Think about it. If Kim Jong-un's rule ever faltered, or if he suddenly passed away, who would the vultures rally behind? Kim Jong-nam was the ultimate loose end. Older, westernized, publicly reformist, and just sympathetic enough for foreign powers to imagine him as Plan B, a walking alternative, a dangerous idea. It wasn't just an assassination, it was a performance. Because this wasn't about removing a rival, it was about removing a possibility. In a regime where image is truth and loyalty is currency, Kim Jong-nam represented something unspeakable, that the throne could have gone to someone who didn't want it. The message to any other would-be dissenters was clear. We can get you, even in a Disneyland or an airport lounge, and we will laugh while doing it. Kim Jong-nam will be remembered as the exiled prince who laughed at the throne and paid for it with his life. His story, equal parts satire and tragedy, shines a light on the insanity of dynastic politics in Pyongyang, where you don't need to reach for the crown to lose your head.